Hey, you turns. Welcome to exercise 8.3, where we're going to take a look at the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula, just an overview of what it is basically a general quadratic equation rearranged to the point where we have x by itself on the left side of the equal sign using linear equations rules, where we move everything but x to the right side of the equal sign. Okay, so the ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. The quadratic equation is just a rearrangement of this general parabolic equation or quadratic formula. Quadratic general equation. So why do we use this? We do this when we have potentially an irrational number for x, or if we have an answer in the decimals for x. So what we have here are 7 steps which moved all the non-x prone numerals to the right side of the equal sign. So start by dividing both sides of the equation by a. Okay, and what we're seeing is a situation where we've gotten rid of the a in front of the x squared. Okay, and then we complete the square. And then we factorize the first 3 terms as a perfect square. And eventually, as we whittle all the way down, what we're left with is a solution which can be summarized as x equals negative b plus minus square root b squared take away 4ac, all divided by 2a. The plus minus is super important because this is where we get our 2 answers. We're going to do the quadratic equation twice. Okay, once with the plus and then once again with a minus between the negative b and the square root b squared take away 4ac. Okay, so let's see how we apply this. Don't worry too much about the proof for now. You'll see it over and over again all the way up until year 12 methods. So as we said earlier, what is the quadratic formula used for? It can save us time finding the factors of the constant, and so you can use the quadratic formula really anytime. And it's really useful when we have an irrational number for the value of x, or an answer that's in the decimals, okay, for the value of x. So just remember the equation, the quadratic equation, can only be used when we have a quadratic equation. So the quadratic formula can only be used when we have a quadratic equation in the general form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So if it doesn't equal to 0 and you've got prone numerals on both sides, you need to rearrange your equation, your quadratic equation, to ax squared plus bx plus c, so you know what the a, b, and c values are when you substitute them into the quadratic formula. Okay, quadratic formula, quadratic equation, tongue tangler. Okay, 2 different things. So example 1 here says use the quadratic formula to solve each of the following equations. What you need to do is you always need to write the rule. Okay, so write the formula or check in with the formula, which we have here. So we'll move that front and center. And remember, we've got to do this twice. Okay, what that means is we're going to have a plus and a minus. So if we begin, let's see. What we'll have is a x equals a negative b plus square root b squared take away 4 times a times c divided by 2a. Okay. On the right side, we're going to have, well, let's not do that. Let's insert a line. On the right side, we'll have the same thing, but we'll have a minus instead. All right, so on the right side, we'll have x equals negative b minus square root b squared take away 4ac on 2a. Right, now how do we know what the values of a, b, and c are? Well, it always goes like this. The value in front of the x squared, the coefficient, is always a. The value in front of the x, or the coefficient in front of the x, is always b, and the constant without a pronumeral attached is represented by C for constant. We then go and plug in these three values into the equation. For example, the first one will have negative b, which is 4, okay, as we can see from above here, plus square root, remember b is 4, so 4 squared, take away 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 1. Okay, all this is divided by 2a. On the right, we'll do the same thing, but instead of having a plus, we'll have a minus. So we'll have negative 4 minus square root 4 squared, take away 4 times 3 times 1, divided by 2 times 1. Okay, so, oh, sorry, that's 2 times 3. Okay, so the A, I forgot to substitute. We're meant to replace that with 3 because that's what the A value is. So essentially, if we were to simplify the top, what we would have is negative 4 plus square root, sorry, 4 squared is 16. Okay, take away, well, 4 times 3 is 12, times 1 gets us 12. Okay, remember, we've got a negative in front, so it's 16, take away 12 inside the square root sign, and then we've got 6 at the bottom. Same thing over here. So it's helpful to do this alongside one another because you've got so many similar steps and answers. Okay, divided by 6. Now, what we have is, what's this? Negative 4 plus, well, 16 take away 12 is square root. Well, it's going to be 4. So square root 4 is 2 on 6. Okay, if you're not sure, just input that into your calculator, which is going to give us an answer of negative 2 on 6, which is equivalent to negative 1/3. All right, so that's our answer for the first part. So notice how it's not a whole number or an integer. On the right here, what we have is negative 4 take away square root 4, which is 2. So negative 4 take 2, which is on 6, which means we'll have negative 6 on 6, which equals negative 1. Okay, so our two answers for x is going to be, as you can see, we're figuring out what the x value is, negative 1 and negative 3. Now, how do we find our y value? Well, our y value later on, we'll just plug these two x values into the original equation to figure out y. Okay, but that's a story for another day. Once again, let's figure out example 1b. We've only got 2 examples this time around, so it's nice and short. Okay. So always write the formula or have reference to the formula. And this time we're rounded to 2 decimal places. Okay, so the first part wanted exact answer, which means you want to leave it as a fraction or a third. 2 decimal places, we have to go and square root the third to get decimals, obviously. Okay, so here's our A value, our negative 3. Our B value here is negative 6, and our C value here is negative 1. So therefore, x equals negative b plus square root b squared take 4ac. Okay, remember we've got to do 1 with plus, 1 with minus, divided by 2 times a. Let me just insert another line. Right. So then over here we have x equals negative b minus b squared take 4ac divided by 2 times a. Now, let's just make sure we substitute correctly because that's the common error where people make. If we have a negative b and a negative 6 as our b value, two negatives next to each other basically cancels each other out. So this actually becomes a positive 6 plus b squared, which is negative 6. Now, when you input this into your calculator, you need to make sure you put brackets around the negative 6. Otherwise, it thinks it's negative brackets 6 brackets squared, which means you get a negative answer. Here, it's going to be a positive answer, okay, because the negative's inside the brackets. Okay, so it's negative 6 times negative 6. So make sure you put the brackets into your calculator so it doesn't get confused. Take away 4 times our a value of negative 3 times negative 1. Okay, all divided by 2 times negative 3, because that's our a value. We write this on the other side, but instead of having a plus, we have a minus. Okay, and then we've got the same situation inside the square root. Square root symbol. So from here, what we can do is we go and simplify everything underneath the square root sign. So we have 6 plus square roots, negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times negative 3 gets us positive 12. Yep, our constant is negative 1, just double checking. So negative 12 times negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12 times negative 1 gets us negative 12. Okay, and then down below, 2 times negative 3 gets us a negative 6. Here we've got 6 take away exactly the same thing. 36 take 12, which means we also have to divide by negative 6 underneath. Okay, so identical up until the plus minus square root. Here, what we then have is a situation where we've got 6 plus square root 36 take 12 square root 24 divided by negative 6. And here we've got 6 minus square root 24 divided by 6. So what does this equal? Let's input this into our calculator. 6 plus square root 24 divided by negative 6. Remember, we want decimals, so this is going to give us negative 1.8165. Doesn't say how many decimal places, to 2. So we have to go and bump up the second one by 1 because our third decimal place is 5 and higher. So it's equal to negative 1.82. Okay, we want to use the squiggly equal sign. Over here, if we have 6 take away square root 24 divided by negative 6, we'll get negative 0.183503, which is equivalent to, in 2 decimal places, negative 0.18, because the 3 is not 5 and higher, so we don't need to bump up the second decimal place by 1. That's all there is to exercise 8.3. We've seen the quadratic formula before. Just remember, you need to have the quadratic equation in the generic form for you to be able to apply the quadratic formula. So that means you have to rearrange to have ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. And then just make sure you check what sort of answer they want, whether it's exact or decimal. Let me know if you have any questions, and that's all for 8.3.